Welcome to Teen Summit Talks, Teen Summit Interviews. I remember too many things. Amazing individuals that I've known for quite a while. One I've known since I was about 5. But it's a pleasure to have my guests today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you. So, Nathaniel.
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Nathaniel Peat. I am a entrepreneur. I'm a social entrepreneur, so I run a couple of businesses. One of them is a company called The Safety Box, works with young people at risk, work with youth that are failing in schools and colleges and PRUs, and also right the way across the criminal justice system, from youth offending institutions to prison. We deal with high-risk offenders, change their lives and help them to rehabilitate into a productive life. That's one of my companies. I've got another company called GenX, which is a renewable energy company. We're operational in 4 countries, and what we do is we teach and train young people and women how to build solar products. In fact, this is one of my solar products here. It's one of our solar lanterns, and what we do is we train them how to build solar lanterns right the way up into installations of commercial solar products in houses, and it's a way of empowering them both through knocking off climate change, trying to impact in education and gender inequality around STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I also chair a very large Jamaican diaspora organization known as Jamaicans Inspired. It's an organization which tries to connect 2nd and 3rd and 4th generation, Jamaicans back to their heritage.
A relationship manager specializing in cash management based in Dubai. I work for one of the largest banks within the UAE. My clients consist of global banks and regional non-bank financial institutions, such as insurance companies, hedge funds, private equity firms, etc. Before coming to Dubai, I lived in London, born and bred in London. I was a youth pastor. I had my own charitable organization as well, and was the advisor to the Mayor of London, advisor to the Mayor of Lewisham, and a range of other different roles. And I'm delighted to be here amongst such great people. Good friend of mine, Nathaniel Peat, someone I met many years ago, and I look forward to contributing to the dialogue today.
Oh, thank you both so much. Just want to go back to where the passion to support young people started from. For me, I was working in a primary school. I think Nathan will remember this, and we got together and we put together a proposal and presented it to the head teacher, and he absolutely loved it. It was a Black History production, which was written by myself. I produced it. I did everything by myself with about 40 primary school students. And Nathan supported that. We were funded for it. Nathan managed to get one of the speakers, who was Mark Prince, was the speaker. And we're going back over 10 years plus. Probably back to close to 17 years this event was, and it was the first event of its sort for that particular school. And the actual event was so packed that we had parents and friends, family and friends standing outside watching the whole event. And that for me was, I got to see how powerful it was to hold events like that. And then I invited Nathan to speak at the school that I worked in Brixton. And it was a different experience for the students, because at that particular time, motivational talks were quite new. And then I was looking for someone else. And I think I met Nathaniel through, I was either you, Nathan, or another friend from Nathaniel's church. And I had never, ever seen Nathaniel speak. So when Nathaniel did come in, and then I saw another level to motivational speaking, for me, it changed the game completely, absolutely changed the game. And still to this day, you two are the best motivational speakers or speakers that I've had in education in the whole time that I've been teaching for. And when I think about speaking in public, it is not an easy thing to do at all. And it's something that you need to build on. So in saying that, how did you develop your public speaking skills to the stage that you are today? And is there anyone that you modeled yourself off? So Nathaniel.
Well, I mean, in a lot of Caribbean households, a lot of African households, faith is a huge part of our growing. So, you know, whether that be the churches that you're going to or the families that you belong to that have a religious, you know, type of faith based activity for youth in particular. So when I was actually at church growing up as a young boy, a child, I was familiar with actually going in front of the congregation, and actually whether it be the children's ministries or the youth ministries, or, you know, you've got the early teens or the kindergarten, you know, from young I was actually going up and actually started to do things like Bible scriptures or reciting things or singing songs. And by the time I was in my teens, you know, you're doing these mini sermons and stuff like that. And from there, basically, it naturally led into the other areas. And I also practice in martial arts. And so when I was doing my martial arts, as I began to go through the ranks, I would then be used as a teenager to teach them the younger ones. So as a 15-year-old, I would then be coaching the 5-year-olds and the 7-year-olds, and then the teaching aspect and how to basically communicate with younger people then became more familiar. But I would say my foundation of all of that started from watching a lot of speakers through church, through you know, the various different courses that I was going to with my martial arts training, and basically combining the two. That kind of gave me all of the expertise that I needed. And, you know, oftentimes people say to me, don't you get frightened like talking in front of people? Well, no, because it's something that I've been doing since I was young. So it really then after that was just about building my ability to communicate. So once I got over the fear of let's say teaching new people or teaching older people than myself, it was really then just about communicating properly. So actually working the craft, so to speak, or working that speaking. You know, it's taken me in front of many audiences. I've spoken to over 1,000 people in a room. I've spoken to, you know, many people, you know, close to 10,000 people in an auditorium. And you know, it doesn't matter whether I'm talking to guys that are in prison, or whether I'm talking, you know, a few people in prison, or I'm talking to young people, or going to a massive stadium. The key thing is that my foundation was actually laid, and I would really heavily put that down to my upbringing through the church.
And Nathan?
Mine's very similar to Nathaniel's, actually. So my mum started to take me to church from the age of 4, I believe it was. And you go to Sunday school, you learn your golden text, and you get up in front of your class and recite your golden text, or try to, if you've not remembered it very well. And that led on to then being inside the church itself during the service. There was something called testimony service, where someone would stand up and talk about something they've overcome, or how God has blessed them during the week, or something they were going through. And I remember having to stand up on a chair so that I could be seen, because I was so small, and give a testimony. My mum reminds me that I would always say things that maybe I shouldn't have said, about maybe some of the challenges we were going through, the struggles we were going through as a family. But I was always honest and passionate. So I think that's kind of my style. I wouldn't say I've yet perfected my speaking ability, but I think one thing I know I bring when on the stage is just kind of speaking from my heart, and just speaking through some of the experiences I've gone through, and trying to help someone else realize that no matter where you are today, things can get better. And sometimes it's easy said, but when they hear that someone's gone through something and faced challenges and overcome, it gives them that, you know, empowerment and belief in that statement. So church for sure. And then in school, I got involved in drama. And that's where I think I really found a passion for engaging with the audience, especially with improvisation. I used to love when the teacher would say, just throw out a statement, or say, now you're a chicken. I don't know what it was. And you just had to start acting that character, or whatever you were. And I just loved being in front of people and making that connection and getting them to believe in what I was saying, and taking them on the journey.
So you don't want to mention the singing, Nathan?
I'll leave that. No, singing, being a part of choir, church. But then when you're in the choir, you're just a member of the choir. It was actually Yuki who I remember hearing me sing once, and you actually said, "Nate, you know what? You've got a really nice voice." I think you gave me that bit of confidence for singing. And I remember going to the South Bank University. They used to have the open mic nights.
Okay, yeah.
I went to a few of those, and I saw people doing poetry, rapping, singing, all that stuff, and that just opened my mind and my eyes up to, just being able to share, in your own way, in your own style. For so long, when you're in front of people, you're trying to be like someone else, but the best thing to do is to be yourself. No one can replicate you. No one can, they can try, but just be authentic, be yourself, and just have your own style, and realize that what you have to say matters. So speak up.
Definitely. So let's talk about your upbringing in terms of how it shaped you into the characters that you are today. So with me, I grew up in Brockley Estate for a short period of time, and then I moved to Lewisham, and then I moved to Croydon. But prior to moving from Brockley to Lewisham, I lived with you, Nathan, and your family for a short period of time, because we were transitioning into another property, and that was Aylesbury Estate. So a lot of your time was spent on Aylesbury Estate. So I just want to know, the question is, how has your upbringing shaped your characters, the people that you are today? How has that developed, your characteristics?
I got a good start out as in primary school. I was very strong in primary school. I had really good teachers. I had very good support in terms of going through my stuff. And what happened when I went to secondary, so I moved boroughs and I went into Tottenham. And at the time, Tottenham had a lot of issues that was going on between the police and also the black community. There was a lot of racism that was in Tottenham at the time. In fact, I was a child of the 1985 Tottenham riots, which was relating to a really high-profile killing of Joy Gardner, and it started on the Tottenham riots. And I was a child growing up in that. And so 5 years after that, you were having, a lot worse than you could ever imagine now. The four parents and were really, really kind of being harassed. And so I kind of grew up around that. And I went into secondary school. I went to a school called Northumberland Park. There's a big gang called MPK at the moment that actually came out of that whole area. So I was surrounded by a lot of negative influences, and because of the background which I had growing up as a child, I was, my parents had ensured that they instilled leadership into me. So when I went to school, the schoolwork I was doing wasn't like the schoolwork I was doing at primary school. I was above the level in the classroom, so I became disengaged in the curriculum. I became so disengaged in the curriculum. In fact, I believe that my tutor was racist. In fact, there was other black teachers that would tell us that those teachers are racist, or they've experienced racism themselves from those teachers. So we had this mindset of resistance just against the authority. And as a result of my own choices, which I made, I didn't do very well at school. I started to hang out with the wrong people. I started to go down the wrong road. I started to do things. I was bunking school. I was getting involved in stuff. And, my life just started to change a lot. And even though I had a good family, school just didn't have what I could see as would be beneficial to me. And it wasn't really that school. It wasn't really school. It was that the teachers that were teaching me, I felt didn't have my best interest. Anyway, nonetheless, that basically really, it got to a point. It got to everything that you do that's negative will come to a climax. And I remember the climax it came to is when my friend basically showed me a strap. Yeah, and that's a gun for those people that are watching this that are not like in with the slang. They showed me a strap, and just to give you an idea in terms of what was happening at the time, there was a feud between Hackney and Tottenham at the time, and people were dying. So there was a lot of deaths around me at the time. I'm about 15, 16. I'm at a critical point in my education, and I didn't pass my GCSEs. I actually I actually got only 4 GCSEs. I did English, literature, English language. My English teacher, a great teacher, in fact, Mr. Henry, he's dead now, unfortunately, but a really good teacher. He understood us. He actually said he would pay us £100 if we passed the exams. So all of us, because we're on this money thing, right? The whole class passed. But imagine we passed English, but the other subjects were failing. Yeah, our motivation was all wrong. But he understood us, right? But I got 2 Bs in that. I should have got A stars because English is my first language. But it just shows the disengagement that I had. I got music again because I was doing music at church. So for me, music was okay, and I was into history. So I got 4 GCSEs, but you need 5 to get into college, and I didn't basically have the opportunity, like many of my friends, to actually get my ticket into college because I didn't make the grades. And so it came to a critical time where all of my fundamental teaching, all of my foundation teaching surfaced to the top when I had to make a decision. It's either, all right, am I going to the road? Am I going to be on the roads? Or I'm going to try to get into college. And so I basically had to make a critical decision at that point. And even though I didn't get the grades, I managed to with determination, keep on going back after being knocked back from rejection from my A-level, to get them to actually accept me onto the A-level. I kept on trying. And what happened was, after I got onto my A-level, the head of the physics department had actually said, look, she's seen me just basically coming back so many times, and she actually put me onto an A-level. And all of that whole situation has shaped me as an individual to say that the only limitation that exists is myself. Because even when the answer is no, if you persist at it, and if you keep going, and if you keep trying, then you can shift that no into a possibility. You see, until you actually make the thought in your mind a reality, until you make it a reality in your mind, you're not going to experience it in the atmosphere. You've got to pursue in that reality in your mind until reality accepts your idea of that reality, if that makes sense. And what happens is, when you're striving for that yes, even though you haven't made it, you're able to achieve it. And that has really helped me in my life. And those years that I had as a young person, every part of it, like the discipline I had in my house when I was growing up, the knowledge which my mum and dad were instilling into me. If you hang out, Nathaniel, if you hang out with those people, you're not going to fail. If you keep moving with those, stop hanging around with those guys. I've taken that philosophy into my adult life, whereby I'm not going to associate with people that are going to be pulling me down or sucking me down, but I'm actually going to be with people that are going to elevate my mind. These are fundamental principles that I learned when I was young. And I made mistakes when I was young. I could see the impact of that, where, I lost friends at school, people went into prison, some people are dead, some people are still in prison now. That really just shaped my whole being. And really that has made my character now what it is now. And that determination is what can help you to get there. Determination and excellence. You aim for excellence, people have to accept. So really, that's basically what has shaped me as an individual. But that story is a lot deeper. But I know it's not for that to talk as deep. But it's just real talk. I didn't do well at school. I failed my GCSEs. And I had to work hard to get back up and go on to university and stuff. But I hustled my way through, and everything's a struggle. So life is a struggle, but it's given me the ability and the resilience to actually get to where I am now.
That's absolutely amazing. Amazing. And I think, like, there's so much in what you said. And I think that, like in the school system, if you have something on your CRB, it's very difficult for you to be working in education. But I always say that the people that have been through stuff and have turned their lives around make the best teachers. Kids always know the real ones. And I'm not saying that you have to have a criminal background in order for you to influence for change. I'm just saying it's about character. There's a passion because you've been through stuff. And it just, anyway, there's just so much in what you were saying, so much. Nath, I know your upbringing because I've known you all your life. So yeah, how has that shaped, your upbringing shaped who you are today?
Okay, so during this coronavirus lockdown, I started to do some meditation. And one of the activities, as a group that I was a part of, one of the activities was to write down 50 people that have influenced you as a person. And immediately I thought that list was going to be filled up with, celebrities, well-known business individuals, entrepreneurs, etc. Most of the people on that list were family members, including yourself, Keish. My parents laid the foundation, my mum especially bringing me to church. At one point, she was a single mother, me and my older brother, and she had 3 jobs. And I saw my mum going to work 3 times a day. So that instilled in me the work ethic that was required to be successful. Anything you have to do, you have to put in the work. And you have to do what you have to do in that time. You can't just sit down and expect bills to be paid or expect whatever goal you're working towards is going to be achieved. You have to put in the work. And I picked it up from my mother. She later on got married to my stepfather. I call him Dad because he's the only dad I've known. And I'll touch on my biological father in a second. And my dad, he's the one that instilled in me the importance of education. Because in primary school, I didn't really do well at all. At one point, they wanted to hold me back a year because I was struggling. I was misbehaving in class. Instead of doing my work, I'd be playing the clown, speaking in class, being rude to teachers, getting into fights, all that kind of stuff. And when they got married, they moved areas, and I found myself in class not knowing anyone, so I had to get on with my work. I went from someone who was struggling in maths, who was given homework to improve in maths in one primary school, to when we moved, finishing my maths before anyone else in class, and the teacher having to give me extra math work to keep me busy. Phone calls at home stopped being Nathan's misbehaving, Nathan's got into another fight, we think we might need to exclude him, to, you know what, you've got such a bright, polite, well-behaved child. And my mum used to be surprised by that. So it's kind of like a bit of a transition, a bit of a journey. I was very fortunate that your older sister, Keish, Melissa, was seeing someone who used to come around and cut my hair, who became an accountant, and he came around one day in a BMW, silver SED-free, and I was like, what do you do? I want to do what you do. And he was an accountant, and he told me what an accountant was, and the fact that I was good at maths made me realize I could become an accountant. So at the age of, I think it was 10 or 11, I said I wanted to become an accountant, and that's what I ended up doing. It wasn't easy, it was a struggle at times. I remember being in college, studying A-levels, business studies, and drama. 2 of my closest friends dropped out. One dropped out to sell weed full-time, because in class he kept getting calls from people that wanted to buy from him. Another person dropped out to work in JD Sports full-time, because working full-time, you maybe got like $1,000 a month. And when you're like 16, 17, that's a lot of money. So when that happened, I remember thinking, why am I in college? What's the point of education? No one around me was really educated, doing really well. But I remember looking back at Leslie and him being an accountant and having that car. And I was like, if you want that car, you need to get that education. And I realized, I was very fortunate that I realized that although in the short term, working in the retail sector, what my friend did was good, getting him good money, or selling drugs was making my friend good money. I just knew it was all short term. I knew that, especially on the criminal activity, that people are watching you, either the police or other people that are jealous of what you're doing. And yeah, you might be making money living that life, but unfortunately, it's not going to last that long. So yeah, so I was very fortunate that I had people around me that gave me some form of guidance or encouragement to help me pursue my goals. Touching on my biological father now, he wasn't around when I was really young because he himself was in prison. He ended up being transferred to a psychiatric hospital because he suffered from paranoid delusions. And unfortunately, while there, he died. He was killed by the nurses. They gave him a tranquilizer that was more powerful than it should have, and he died. And he was front page news in the Voice newspaper. My grandmother used to campaign about institutional racism with even Doreen Lawrence. I was young, so I wasn't really aware of all of that. That's things I found out as I've got older. But my father, his experience made me really angry when I was young. But that anger changed from how he died to kind of how he lived. I realized that he didn't do well in school. He fell in the wrong crowd, was used by people, found himself in the criminal activity, prison, etc. And he died mentally and then physically. So his experience drove me to really engage with my community and to help others avoid a similar path. His death, although very unfortunately, was the driving force for my passion to help change others. And I think what we also have to do just throughout our lives, there's bad things that happen to all of us. And you can either take that and be angry and be bitter and let that drive you to be negative and do negative things, or you can use that pain and that suffering to drive you to do positive things. And that's something that I've done. And I've been very fortunate that I've seen the fruits of my labor. Someone that I was mentoring during a mentoring program I set up at Barclays recently got in touch with me. He's now in the insurance sector. He's established an Afro-Caribbean insurance, committee, so to speak. And he's doing really well. And he reached out and said, you know what, thank you very much for the help that you've given me, because without the support and the guidance and the inspiration, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing. And now he's helping others. So I'm already seeing the fruits of my labor. And I'm sure there's many others out there who are doing really well because of what I've done, because of what things Nathaniel's done, what you've done, Keish, as a teacher. So it's very rewarding, and that encourages me to keep going. But my journey is not over. I don't feel like I've reached the pinnacle of who I am as a person. I'm committed to always developing myself. I'm committed to always improving what I'm doing, always learning, and not thinking that I know everything or I know better than someone, because I think we can always learn from those around us, even those who are younger. Even my children, they teach me something every time I speak to them. And yeah, I'm just committed to continuing the journey.
Which is the one that you're most passionate about?
Really hard. You see, the thing is, when you live a purposeful life, every single thing that you do lines up with everything that you love. And the thing is, if you're not doing something that you love doing, then something's not right. So it's about living within your passion and your purpose. So everything I do, I love. I don't really have one thing that I would say, yeah, I'm going to set that above everything. I didn't tell you at the beginning that I'm actually a qualified pilot. I love to fly. Aviation is amazing. I'm like, you can see I'm smiling already from it, you know. Yeah. It's one of those things that there's really gets me up. Like I love flying and I love aviation. I'm not doing as much of it now because I'm really full-time business, but my business is not just business. This is actually profit with purpose. So every single thing that I'm doing in business is empowering someone else's life. It's lifting somebody else up. And so that for me is a great thing. Nathan was just touching on that about, someone that's come back to him and said that this is where I am now. And that's just as a result of his mentorship around that person. And in everything that I've done, all of my business are designed in that way of empowerment. So when you see somebody that, appreciates the thing that you've done for them, when you've helped somebody, that's such a powerful thing. The greatest significance in life isn't found for the car you drive or the house you live in or how much money you got in the bank. It's not found with the amount of credentials you got behind your name, or even if you're on the road, the amount of stripes you got. It don't come from that. The greatest significance in life comes through service. And the thing is, the fact that my businesses offer a service for people's needs, for me, that empowers me every day. I failed my GCSEs, yeah, but I've got degrees in engineering and I'm a pilot, I mean, what it says in the paper, once you've got faith, faith connects you to the impossible. It links your goals and your accomplishments. It is the thing that really helps you to move forward. So for me, that is the backbone to everything. So my faith above everything really is my number one passion. But everything I do, I love to do. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. Nathan.
So for me, I think above everything, my passion is people. So I'm really passionate about engaging with people. That's one of the things that wakes me up every single day, or especially when you're not on lockdown, is engaging with, be it my colleagues, be it with clients, be it with members of the community, wherever it is. I think I just love learning about someone's journey, be it where they're coming from, be it where they are, where they want to get to, and just trying to see how I can play a part with helping them achieve their objectives. And that's worked really well for me on the social aspect. It's worked really well for me in the financial world, in banking. And I started off as an accountant. As I mentioned earlier, that was one of my goals. But what I found with that, I wasn't engaging with anyone. I was just at my desk, tapping away at spreadsheets, doing graphs and sending emails. And I wasn't happy. I was actually really, really down about what I was doing. I was struggling to go to work. I wouldn't stay long in one company because I didn't realize it was the role. I thought it was the actual company I was working for. So I'll change companies, work for another company, same thing would happen. Over time, I had a mentor and he said to me, what is it that you want to do? And I would say to him, I want to earn a lot of money. And I said, I want to be a trader. I'm good with numbers. So I want to be a trader to earn a lot of money. But he said, okay, great. You want to be a trader to earn a lot of money, but what do you think your strengths are? What do you enjoy doing? What aspect of your day brings a smile on your face? And I looked at it, it was when I had the opportunity to speak to people. I was still good with numbers, but I'd love just engaging people. And he said, you should be looking at a role in sales or relationship management, which is what I ended up doing. If you look at the work I did with Youth Enlightenment Limited, the mentoring, the talks in schools, it's all about people, it's all about engagement. Church, it's the same thing. It's all about engagement. It's all about spreading the gospel. It's giving someone hope, making them realize that God's love is what they need in their life to help them overcome any challenges that they're facing, and just to shine a light on the darkness, because we all have our dark times. We all have our moments when we feel low and we feel that life isn't going the way we want it to go, and maybe it will never get that way. And sometimes we need someone just to listen to us. We need someone to understand who we are and make us feel that you're special. You have a purpose, and you should seek that purpose, seek it out. And you need someone to be able to do that. And that's the thing I think, I love the most, is just engaging with people.
Yeah. And you know what, like you're saying, life is tricky. Life, because not everything always goes to plan. When I was 18, I left the Brit school. I was really passionate about music, passionate about art. I thought I was going to be a signed artist at one point. And then I found out I was pregnant at 19. And I know at that particular time, I think my mum kind of felt like I wasn't actually going to make much of my life after that. And for me, I really wanted to prove everybody wrong, so I went straight to university after I had my son. So he must have been about 5 months. Unfortunately, then, before he turned 1, I was a single parent, but I still was determined to, finish my degree course. By the time my son was about 3, I bought my first property. By the time he was 8, I bought my second property. And I probably wasn't even earning £2,000 a month. It was literally the same thing again. It's like, I watched your mum have 3 jobs, Nath. I had 3 jobs at one stage as well. And I thought that was the model. I thought, you're supposed to have 3 jobs. Like, if you've got time, then you work in those, during those times. And it was a struggle. I really, really do. So in terms of like using that as an example, the toughest times, the tests that you've been through, like what has been the toughest challenge, Nathaniel?
There's a lot of institutional racism and prejudice that exist in corporate, in careers, when you're trying to elevate, when you're really trying to get up there. I'm not talking about low level, I'm talking about when you don't start to see people like you at the top, then that something's going to be there. And what happened was, this actually happened in the United States of America, where I was doing part of my commercial pilot training. And there was a captain that was there at the time who was on purpose being racist behind closed doors about a student from India. She was a short student pilot, and she came in. I had already had my stripes, already had my commercial license, and I'm more senior in terms of a pilot, still at this flight school, but I was more senior. And I heard the instructors talking about this girl. Oh, using racial terms. Yeah, this person can't fly. Using the racial term, that person can't fly. That person shouldn't be in the flight school. And she'd been through about 20 different instructors. And the chief pilot, the chief captain of the flight school, basically made it so difficult for this young girl in terms of knocking her confidence. And so to the point whereby she was knocked so badly that it impacted her studies, it made her worried, and I was providing her some level of support until she got a short instructor, very experienced female pilot, that basically said to her, can you see the cowling? Can you see the top? When you're looking out over the flight deck, can you see the end of the end of the plane? And she said, no. So she said, look, I'm going to give you a cushion, because in these older aeroplanes, you can only put the seat up so far. But I'm going to give you a cushion because I had the same problem. Her only issue was that she was struggling with her landing. And what happened was she put a cushion under her seat, and basically she landed the plane like no problem. And what I did was I basically called the captain out, and I asked this guy to put on her epaulets. And that was one of the worst experiences he could have had. And the reason why I did it was to help her and instill confidence in her, because I too had experienced racism. I remember flying a plane into a southern area of the United States, and you know, I was with my white colleague at the time, and we went over to an aeroplane that this guy was tending. It's a beautiful plane, and we commented on his plane, you know, and the man, we went over to him just admiring his aircraft, and he came to us and he said, you know, there's two people that shouldn't be in a flight deck, looking at my white colleague. And he said, the two people, one is a woman, the other's the N-word. Yeah. And me understanding the level of racism, and the hardest thing is to not respond. Oftentimes, the hardest thing is to react. You know, when people are hitting you with negative. So I'd say probably the greatest challenge, and I can give you lots of other occasions where in aviation in particular, I've experienced racism. You know, I'm no less than anyone. In fact, most of the black pilots, in fact, did better than the counterpart, our other white colleagues. Why? Because many of us were taught you've got to work 2 times, 3 times harder than the other guys to succeed. Not that this is it's not a racial thing at all. It's just that the struggle has been real, and our foreparents had a struggle. And for us as well, that was a challenge. So these have been some of the greatest challenges which I've faced. On top of that, I went through a legal battle for my son, because I went through a horrible divorce, and basically just making sure that I could have 50% of my son. That was so important for me. So having to fight again in a racially, at the time when I was fighting, it was quite biased towards women in the court. And so I basically was fighting against the system there, but everything is good now. And the good thing about challenges is that when you have challenges on your road, it means that your road is going somewhere. If there's no challenges on your road, it means your road ain't going nowhere. So the fact that there is some challenges, you know, Nathan's had a hard upbringing, you've had a hard upbringing, I faced my challenges growing up. You know, the challenges are real, and tough experiences, you know, will help to build you. But it's given me the resilience, and it's given me the ability to help other people. So whether that be people that are suffering from, you know, mental depression because of fighting for their children, I've helped those types of individuals, or whether that be people that have experienced some level of institutional prejudice or racism, also encouraging them, because I've been through that. So these have been some really tough times in my life that I have actually been through.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Nathan.
So for me, one of the challenges I would say I faced was to move into my chosen field within banking. So I started off in 2002 as an accountant. Then many years later, after working for Ernst & Young and a few other places in really good roles, I realized I wanted to transition. And I'd go and meet with people, I'd go for interviews, no luck. I got so frustrated and so unhappy. I remember just not going into work and resigning. I messaged my manager and said, look, I resigned from the company. I started to spend full time on Youth Enlightenment Limited, on the charity, which was amazing because that was something I was really passionate about. And I did that for, I think, for a year. Financially, things were really challenging for me and the family. And I used to go into schools, used to go into community centers, and I'd always say to the audience, don't give up on your dream, don't give up on your goal. And, you know, even if the door's closed, find another way in, a window, the window's closed, basement, chimney, whatever, find a way to achieve your goal. Do not give up. But you know what I realized? I was a hypocrite. Because I look back on my banking career, that's exactly what I did. I gave up. When I wasn't getting the opportunity that I wanted, for whatever the reason might have been, I gave up. I was frustrated. I quit. So I was motivated through my own words to go back into banking and to make it happen. So I started working at Barclays. During my time there, that's when I started the Barclays Beyond Mentoring Program. So this is a program that's been running now for 9 years, because next year is going to be the 10th year. And they've invited me to speak at the 10th year opening ceremony. So I started that off. One day I was in the lift and it was really busy where the lifts were. So sometimes it's easier to say I want to go up, to get into a lift that's going up, than to go down. So I got into a lift, everyone's waiting to go down. So I said I want to go up. I got into the lift. It went all the way up to the top floor. The chairman of Barclays came in at the time. He was Marcus Aegis. And I remember looking at him and thinking, wait, that's the chairman. I recognize his face from the website. Yeah. And something in me said, introduce yourself. And I was like, no, but he's the chairman. You're this AVP nobody. And another voice said to me, but he's just a man like you. I politely waited for everyone else to leave the lift. Other people got in, got on the ground floor. I said, excuse me, sir, to interrupt you, to want to introduce myself. And he said, oh, hello, pleasure to meet you. And I said to him, look, while at Barclays, in addition to being in finance, I run a mentoring program. There's different events that we do. I would love to have you as a speaker at the closing ceremony. And he said, get in touch with my PA and see what can happen. He didn't even tell me whose PA was. I had to Google whose PA was, and it's the same PA he's had for multiple years. So I found her name, sent her an email, said, is he available to speak at this event and on this date? She said no. I didn't take no for an answer. So I went back and said, okay, he's not available on this date. Can you let me know when he is available? And then I will book the event around him. And she came back and said, I applaud your determination. He's available on, she gave me the date. I made sure the auditorium was available. He came and spoke. While he spoke, he told everyone how we met. And he said, as you can all see today, Nathan's a hell of a salesman. And Nathaniel was sitting in the audience at the time. I'm not sure if you remember that, yeah?
Yeah, I remember speaking at the event.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember exactly when he said that, in fact. I remember. He said it in such a posh accent. He goes, oh, I was just cornered in the lift by this marvelous young man.
So, hearing those words gave me all I needed to know that I could make that transition. Because if the chairman of the bank has said, I'm a hell of a salesman, that means I have to move into sales. That means it's got to happen. Now, I then applied for a job the next day. Cut a long story short, I ended up getting that job. But you know why? It wasn't because Marcus said I'm a hell of a salesman. It's because I started to believe that I could do it. So I realized that my biggest challenge was my own unbelief. So even though I set myself the goal, even though I had a career aspiration of moving into sales, moving into relationship management, I didn't have the belief. I had the raw talent, I had the skill set, I had a lot of what was required, qualifications, but I didn't have belief. So my hardest challenge I've overcome, and there are times I'm still having to overcome it, it's just my self-doubt. Because when you believe in yourself, first of all, God believes in you. Done. That should be enough for all of us. But we also need to believe in us as well and know that whatever we're going for, like you did, Keish, with the house, even when your own mother said, what are you doing? You sure it's sensible? You sure it's wise? You had that belief in yourself. I remember going for jobs and the recruiter saying, you'll never work for a top bank. But like you, again, I don't know if it's in our blood. I don't know. I hate hearing the word no. If someone tells me no, it makes me want to make it into a yes. So when the recruiter said to me, you never work for a top tier bank, that gave me even more motivation to work for a top tier bank, which I ended up doing. So yeah, my biggest challenge is just overcoming that self-doubt. And, you know, I encourage everyone just to look within themselves. And if you're honest with yourself, times when you've not achieved something, time when you've not obtained that goal, did someone stop you or did you stop yourself? Because there's always going to be someone in the way, by the way. Always, even now for me.
Yeah.
Or even now for me, because I'm looking to move up and become MD, maybe CEO one day of whatever I do, right? And then obviously aspirations still there for on the entrepreneurship side. And there's always going to be competition. There's always going to be someone not wanting you to move up. So that's a given. You can't let someone stop you.
Yeah,
Don't
I
let
agree.
yourself. That's the one person who can really stop you is yourself.
Yeah. What's your proudest achievement, Nathaniel?
Probably the proudest achievement is what's behind me on the wall. Can you see that up there? That picture on the wall? Yeah, that's probably the proudest achievement. For me, education, as you know, I failed in school. Yeah, so I failed in school, and my failure in school was, you know, for many people, they think that's it, it's over. And for me, probably the greatest achievement or the greatest acknowledgement, I would say, for me was actually I've now been given the highest honor that a university can actually give someone, and they've made me a fellowship. I've been given the honorary fellowship of Brunel University, which is it is, you know, for me, I begged my way onto my A levels. I failed my foundation degree, yeah, at university. I failed the foundation. Imagine, I didn't get the grades to get into college. So, and then I didn't even do too well in my A levels. And my A levels weren't strong enough to go into university. I had to do a foundation degree. I had to do a step up degree. And I didn't even do very well in my step up degree. But then when I did my degree, I did my master's. For me, it was university was a struggle for me, but I managed to get through. So for my university to come back to me and say, look, we want to give you this fellowship for the stuff that you're doing and everything. For me, that was just amazing. And I had both my mum and dad there. And so for me, that was you know, I've done a lot, but for me, that was a biggie for me, definitely. So I was proud of that. Yeah.
That is cool. That is cool. What a legacy already. A legacy already that you're, you know, that you've already set. You set the bar high.
You know what? It's about my son. Everything I do now is about my son. Right. You know, so it's about my son. It's about my son, and you know,
and he is a mini you. He is a mini you. I remember seeing the clip when you were talking, and someone filmed him mimicking you, and that was hilarious. Too funny. So cute.
It's, you know what, you know, all of us are parents, and you know, the greatest thing that we can do for our children is to just invest in them as much as possible. And you know what, you don't want to be a hypocrite. If you haven't achieved it yourself, you can't set the bar on them. Right. You know, you can't put the pressure on them. So you know what, if you're studying, go and study. Yeah, if your child is doing studies, you go and do studying as well, you know. So that's if any parents are watching this as well, you know, invest into your children and set the bar high. Blessings.
Yeah. And Nathan?
I would say my children, actually, because you know, every time I'm with them, every time I speak to them, the kindness that they have, like the energy that they have is just amazing. And they're my legacy, aren't they? They're the ones that are going to be here when I'm gone, and I'm pushing all of them. And I'm hoping all of them will overachieve more than I have achieved. And at the moment, they're already beyond where I was when I was their age. So that's something I'm really proud of. I remember a proud moment for me. was when I got invited to Buckingham Palace to meet with Her Royal Majesty, the Queen and the Duke. And, after being introduced to them and walking in and into the throne room, I was sitting next to Fifi Brown, who was, I think, the first black model for Marks and Spencer's. And on the other side of me was Paloma Faith. And in front of us was a few actors, Goldie being one of them, and then the Queen right at the front. And I remember sitting in the throne room for a performance, thinking, what am I doing here? I come from a single parent home initially, Aylesbury Estate. My dad went to prison, ended up going into a mental institute, getting killed. I didn't do well in school in the early years. What am I doing here? And that's the proudest moment I had, because I realized I was there because I never let the labels that were stuck on me when I was young stick. I took them off. I didn't let the challenges that I faced early on in my life prevent me from progressing. But I had that dream, I had that vision, and I pursued it. And that's when I think I had a proud moment, being in Buckingham Palace.
Oh, wicked. Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to end with a motto that you will probably recite to yourself, or a motto that you use when you're talking publicly. So, Nathaniel, I actually know your one. I think I know your one.
You should do.
I should do. Should do.
I say this, I say so many different mottos, but one of my main ones is aspire to inspire before you expire, and never allow your dreams to become a regret. So that's something which I recite to myself. I always want to basically be in a life where I'm inspiring somebody else, and I'm never going to allow my dreams to become a regret, because if I grow up, I never ever want to be in a position where it's like I should have done that, or I should have said that. I want to live in the now and be intentional about every moment of my life.
Amen. Nathan.
Yeah, so for me, it's forever moving forward. That's not just my motto, but the motto for my family. And that basically means that whenever I achieve something, I don't just sit down and rest and say, okay, I've done it now, but okay, what's next? But you can take that even when you're going through something, even when you've gone through hardship, you're going through pain, forever moving forward. You've got to keep moving forward. You can't let your current circumstances stop you from progressing. You've got to find a way to dig deep and move forward. And Keish, as you know, even as for us as a family, last year was a very sad year for us. It was a year of loss in regards to family members, and it was a tough year for me. And I felt really down and low and sad. But even those words came back to me like, Nate, come on, forever moving forward. You've got to keep moving forward. You've got life. You've got to make use of that life, and see, what more you can do.
Amen. Okay, so we're going to end our talk. There's so much in what both of you said today, and I know it's going to bless so many people. It's blessed me. I've learned a lot about both of you, but I've also learned something about myself. So I take a lot from what you both have shared today. And thank you for being open as well. It's not easy to talk about, our proudest moments, our toughest moments, because our lives are very personal, So thank you for opening up and sharing your passion to inspire those that you work around. And I just pray that God blesses us with many, many more years to keep on doing what we're doing, and to keep on setting new challenges and new goals for ourselves, so we bless others with that, achievement. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Keisha.
And look forward to seeing you guys when I finally touch the UK.